And we are live with another broadcast in the Roofing on the Rise studios, where we are sponsored by Chad T. Wilson Law Firm. The Chad T. Wilson Law Firm is a trusted and reliable nationwide firm that provides personalized attention to clients. Insurance companies know how to delay, and defend. Oh, my word. And we ensure that valid, lawful claims are paid promptly and fully. If you need legal in regards to insurance claims, reach out to Chad T. Wilson Law Firm. If you need a contact, please reach out directly, 210-919-8987, and I'll get you hooked up with the right person over at Chad T. We are also sponsored by Roofing Supply Incorporated in the Houston marketplace, where you can get your shingles directly from me. Again, that telephone number is 210-919-8987. Today and every day, we have an awesome guest, but today we have a really awesome guest, Ron Snouffer. What's up, Ron? How are you?
Not much, man. Just enjoying life.
Man, it is a awesome day. We had some technical difficulties. Sorry about that, man. But now we're rolling. It's pretty awesome to be able to have you on today.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Hopefully I can bring some value to your clients and they have a good time.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. You know, we've seen each other at IRE in Vegas, and we got to be able to sit down and have a nice little conversation. And I just felt like the conversation could be expounded. I could sit down and talk to you for hours about insurance claims and the way in which that insurance is going. And so I kind of want to jump into that. And then, you know, you brought up an awesome subject of private equity, and it's just sweeping the industry right now. So let's just go ahead and jump on in. What do you think about private equity firms acquiring roofing companies, and what do you think the implications could be?
Oh, man, I find it really entertaining that private equity has just now found our industry. I mean, we're in an industry that's recession proof. There's always going to be some kind of storms. There's always going to be a need for contractors in the marketplace somewhere in the country, and private equity, it just makes sense for them to be able to come in and be able to cash flow on what we in the industry have always seen for years. I'll tell you, though, it does worry me a little bit. You know, there was a point in time where it was pretty easy to, and it still is today, to just start a roofing company and so on and so forth. But
right,
the bigger these private equity companies get involved in this industry, the more they're going to be partnered with supply houses and direct to manufacturers, where they're going to be buying stuff so cheap and have in-house labor crews that the little guy just won't be able to compete with.
That's a big problem.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I cater to both, you know, big or small, but we love helping the smaller guy grow. That's kind of the staple of the industry, you know, actually helping. But for us at RSI, that's a big deal, is helping people grow.
So while I was at IRE, I met with a gentleman who represents 4 national housing companies or home builders, and they were used to buying direct from a supply company, and they were there to have meetings to talk with the manufacturers about buying directly from them, and them receiving the kickbacks and discounts and so forth.
It's kind of dangerous. As a contractor, and this is my input on this, the distributor has the liability for dropping that material off. And if you think it's hard negotiating a mess up with a distributor, try doing it with $1 billion company.
Yeah.
They screw up your driveway, and you're going to be dealing with the driveway screw up for the next 10 years. Whereas someone like RSI, You got a problem and we did it, we're taking care of it. And that's the thing that, and even with major box stores, it may take a little bit longer than someone like us because we're a boutique, privately owned, family owned. And so it's quicker for us. But even major box is going to do the same thing. It may take about a week or 2 weeks, but you're getting it done. That's the beauty of dealing with a distributor because they have that liability. Or is that manufacturer? They just, yeah, some of them won't even ship. You know, some of them were required, they may ship, but they require that you take it off their trucks. So where's like you have to, that means you have to inventory the material directly off the truck. And if you're wrong, it's on you. That's a lot of liability to me. Just saying. It's too much. It's like rolling solar into roofing and going and getting the electrician and all that instead of subbing everything out like you do in roofing and just doing everything in house. Like that's liability is absolutely insane. It just blows my mind. What do you think? How do you think these acquisitions affect the quality of service provided to the clients, those homeowners or the property owners?
So we were talking about this a little bit beforehand. I think that more money just makes the company more of what it was. So if you have a good company and you put more money on it, it's going to be a good company. But if you have a bad company that's disorganized and doesn't do things right and so on and so forth, and you put money on it, it's just going to exasperate the problem already. So you'll have more challenges, more issues, more headaches, so on and so forth. But I mean, I think we've already seen some of the good companies flourish in the private equity. And then I'm sure in the not too distant future, we're going to see some of the companies that were bought up in private equity go under or lose money or whatever because management wasn't in place, their policies and procedures weren't followed, so on and so forth. So that more money doesn't make you better. It just makes you more of what you are.
I agree.
I mean, like we were talking about beforehand, we're in an industry where everybody wants to claim how much money they make and so on and so forth. But the reality is a lot of people don't have any money and are still living month to month and so on and so forth, even with the amount of money you can make in the industry.
Yeah, I agree. It's actually, I seen a post yesterday in Sales Talk for roofing professionals. I think that's the RoofCon page, right? Or maybe it's Roofing at Solar Community. That's the one. And in that, someone was describing how they want a proof of funds before they'll do work. And I'm like, dude, it's gotten to that. Like, you used to be able to hire a crew or a company even, right? Like gutters, concrete, etc. And there'd be like a good faith there. Sometimes they'd ask for a little bit down, but now these crews are not only asking for 50% down, but they're asking for proof of funds. They want to see your bank statements.
Wow.
And that blew my mind. I could not comprehend someone coming to me and saying, hey, I need to see your bank statements before I do work for you.
Well, I think we've talked about this before in the past. You know, in my industry, most public adjusters don't last 24 months. It's the same thing for roofing.
Yeah.
Somebody's a salesperson for XYZ roofing company, and 6 months later they decide, well, I can do this myself, and they go start their own firm, and less than 2 years later they're out of business.
Ron, how long have you been in business?
So what?
How long have you been in business?
So I've owned my public adjusting firm since 2012. So
wow,
12 years.
12 years. Congratulations, my friend. That's a feat. I know it wasn't easy.
We've learned a lot in 12 years.
I can imagine. There's just so much that comes to you guys, and really, I feel like you guys get the shit into the stick a lot. Just you get you get all kinds of stories. I know you do, and then you get the file, and it's like the file's painting another story, but like let's see what's going on. Let's go on to PA work, right? So we talked a little bit about PE. I know we could probably talk about that all day. When a PA, and this is something that's really big, it was posted by Dimitri. It was posted by a couple other people recently about law firms and public adjusters. When a PA collaborates with a law firm, how should that operate, right? Like, when should a PA collaborate with a law firm, in your opinion?
So our opinion and what works for us is you want to bring the attorney in not bring them in, recommend the attorney when you're at an impasse or at a standstill with the insurance company. Now, with that being said, you don't want to negotiate the file to the point where it's not profitable or equitable for a law firm to take on the file either, because then you're doing a disservice to your client because you have nowhere else to take it, or unless you're going to take it to appraisal. But there's certain situations where you don't want to take stuff to appraisal.
Right.
So we always try and build a file so that it's going to win in trial. And we've had over 7,000 cases. I've only testified in court twice. Both cases ended up being the largest first-party settlement in the state for Texas in 21 and then Oklahoma in 2020.
Wow.
So
that says something.
We do the same thing on every single file from the very beginnings and document it the same way. Alan, who works for me, has worked for me for all 12 years. He's actually worked for me for 15 years.
Nice.
Even before the PA business. And law firms like our files because of how we document stuff and put them together.
You think the carrier does too, though?
The carrier knows not to take us to court because they've seen our documentation and they've seen me testify. And
okay, so I'm going to peel the onion. There's a reason why I asked that. I'm going to peel the onion back a little bit more. So, do you feel like when you provide that kind of file to a carrier right off the bat, do you feel like they're ready to fight, or are they ready to settle?
We provide everything to them so that they know that we're ready to fight if that's what it takes. And because of that, the majority of our stuff gets handled without having to go to an attorney. I know the attorneys don't like hearing that, but then again, they like hearing the fact that when they do, the people do screw up on stuff, the carriers do.
Yeah.
And they get one of our files, they love those files because they're put together in a way that it makes their job easier. So,
okay. So you don't feel that you get maybe a random adjuster that is standoffish because they see a well-built file?
We do all the time, but we've been doing this long enough so that we generally know who that adjuster's supervisor is or manager is or so on and so forth. And can say, hey, can you take a look at this before we have to escalate it to the next level? So I'll give you a personal example, because my personal house on June 13th of last year was hit by hail. Whoa. And they sent out a ladder now or assist guy or whatever to look at my roof. I have I guess a steep roof. It's 12-12 on one side and 16-12 on another side. And
whoa.
It's like 80 squares. So I got a pretty steep roof. I told them it was a steep roof when they were called me to set up the time and everything. And they sent out a ladder now guy who didn't get on my roof at all. He took pictures on the ground.
See this. I could see the progression of events here.
For 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Never got on the roof. And
no drone.
Now, granted, I was in a large swath of hail. We had 3-inch hail on our property.
Okay.
So it was easy for them to identify all the hits in the gutters and
3-inch hail. That sounds like Dallas.
Oh, it was huge. I got a call from my buddy Alan Seymour, who does he's in emergency management, but also he runs Progressive Roofing. And he called me 5 minutes before the thing was going to hit my house. He said, "Wake up and go get your truck in the garage."
Oh man, that's a friend right there. I'll tell you what. Ooh.
But back on this, after the guy was there for 15 minutes, he leaves, and like 2 days later, I get a call from the insurance company saying, "Hey, there's not enough damage to the property. Our guy didn't even find anything on your roof." I was like, "Really?" So I had somebody get on the roof that's an adjuster, and I can send you their file, and I can send you a video of 6 minutes of me getting pounded with 3-inch hail.
Wow.
And so I sent all that back over to the adjuster. He takes my file, and we had about 120 pictures, and he sends me back over like 50 cents on the dollar from our estimate. And I called him back up again. I was like, "Hey, man, I appreciate it, but you're a little off."
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing. I've been adjusting claims for 16 years now. I'm a large loss adjuster, and I think we're pretty accurate. Why don't you go ahead and take another look at it before I send it to your supervisor, who I used to work in the field with?
Ooh. The plot thickens.
So I got busy. I didn't talk to him. And 45 days later, I should have turned it over to my own office to handle the calls and stuff like that. But I was just doing it myself, which was even dumb for me. Looking back at it, 45 days later, I realized I haven't heard from him. He hasn't called me. He hasn't sent me an email, nothing. So I start calling him back. What's going on with my claim? Doesn't return my phone calls. Doesn't return my emails. After a week, I called his supervisor and I was like, "Hey, look this file up. Tell me if you think that I'm off on my claim." And the next day, within an hour, or not next day, within an hour of that phone call, I get a call back from the guy who's been avoiding me for 45 days. Not returning emails, phone calls, so on and so forth. He's like, "Well, it looks like I figured out what you're entitled to."
I bet you did.
And he still tried to short pay me by about $7,000.
Good Lord. Oh my word.
So
it's just a testament.
It's ridiculous. So
I just, the logic behind these guys, the carriers nowadays, I feel like has gone out the window, for one. And two, they do this stuff on purpose. Like, I almost feel like it's bad faith at that point, right?
It is.
And
but
so
it's not a decision.
It's just like, what do you want? Yeah. It's like, what do you want, right? Do you want resolution, or do you want to go to court? Like, what do you? I know you just wanted your property. I'm sure you just wanted your property taken care of. And these guys are just jacking you around. They just didn't know who they were dealing with.
I never had to tell them I was a PA in the end. I did eventually call his supervisor again one more time, and now we're good to go and everything. But it still took me like 5 months to get paid on a claim that I should have been paid in 30 days. And part of it was I didn't hire a public adjuster. I was busy handling other claims and so on. And so forth.
Okay.
So I'm
so the next time, are you going to hire a PA?
On that.
I mean, listen, I feel like it's that. Okay, I'm just going to speak for myself, right? I was a contractor for 11 years. when there was something going on in my house, I always had to hire someone, but it was always like after my wife had told me like 15 times that it needed to be done because I thought I was going to do it and get it done. It'd be like that sometimes, man. We got to work through it. And you're busy, you're taking care of other property owners. You're getting a fair settlement for people. And sometimes the last person that you think about is yourself.
Oh yeah.
It'd be like that. And that kind of goes hand in hand with my next question. We'll take like one or two more questions here. I don't want to take too much of your time today. How do PAs navigate their relationship with insurance carriers to ensure fair outcomes to their clients?
So this is my second claim since I've owned my PA firm. The last one, I actually hired one of my guys to just handle the claim for me, and I didn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And it went a lot smoother. I want to say I got paid in about 45 days.
Nice.
And this one, I should have hired one of my guys, but I would have thought after 12 years they would know who I am. And as soon as they see my estimate come across with the name of the company on it, I would think that they would just handle it. But no.
So how do PAs stay up to date on changes in insurance policies and regulations to better assist property owners?
So that's a great question. Remember the guy that I talked about earlier, Alan?
Yes, sir.
Here in my office. Well, he has been doing this with me now in the industry for 15 years.
Okay.
And he talks to attorneys, appraisers, other adjusters every day.
Yeah.
We have a pretty vast network of people who have been doing this for a long time. And we get notified and are pretty up to date on stuff pretty quickly. We also have a pretty good database on all the engineering firms that are out there, how they write their engineering products and how they're going to deny stuff before we ever go out there.
They are terrible, dude. Like
it's like, funny, it's the same report over and over
on there. Like, all right, it's time to hire legal. It's time to hire a PA, or it's time to hire legal. Like, as a contractor, that's what I need. Like, I was just like, dude, this is a joke. Like, I've had one engineer, and I gave him just the benefit of the doubt. This house was smoked. It was on the border of Connecticut and Massachusetts. They'd gotten a crazy hailstorm, and for an area that's so frigid in temperature,
mm-hmm.
receiving a hailstorm like this just decimates everything, the roof, the siding, the windows, everything. And this house was so tore up. I mean, the siding, you look at the homeowners' cars in the driveway, and it was a no-brainer. It was everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so State Farm, they denied. They sent out the engineer. It's the only time the engineer came out, and he got up on the roof. And before he got up on the roof, he said, listen, I do not know why they sent me. I can just see how this is going to go from the ground. He already seen it. We get up on the roof, and he's just pissed because it's totaled. And they denied it and sent him out. That's the only time I've worked with an engineer when it went into a favorable status.
So back on one of those large losses that we did, the one in 21 in Texas, yes, we had two different engineering firms on that one. Mm. So the first one we spent an entire day with. They took over 1,300 pictures on site during their inspection. Their report was 16 pages and only had 40-something pictures and not one document of damage. So when it
Something
ended up with
messed
an
up here.
attorney, they fired that engineer and hired another one.
Oh, okay.
And the new engineer took a picture of the roof completely saturated with water.
Ooh.
And then went back out in August of that year. And in that particular year, when he went back out, we had over 100 days of 100-degree temperature and no rain in like 140 days.
What was the moisture?
And the moisture was 0 in August when he looked at it. But yet, 2 years prior, it was almost 3 years prior, when they had the original claim, they had 30-something leaks in the building.
Wow.
Now, they did temporary repairs and so on and so forth to dry up all those situations and so on and so forth. But to show in his documentation, he was there in February, right after a rainstorm, flat roof, puddles of water everywhere. But then he made the impression that he had done a core sample while he was there. And he hadn't. He came back in August. Now, back on the first guy that took 1,300 pictures, because all that was discoverable because it was in court.
Right.
He had over 900 pictures of damage in his file and didn't show one in that 16-page documentation.
Wow.
It was hilarious watching the attorneys go, well, what about this picture here? Is this damage? Yeah.
What's
about
the
this
implications?
Is this damage?
What are the implications on someone that
Texas
does
Tech
it?
into an ethics thing, and then they get put on probation. It's a joke.
It's a slap on the wrist.
There's an engineer with Hague that has been on a property, and he's been sued a couple times for it, where he goes out and looks at the property, says there's no damage, and then 4 or 5 years later, he'll look at the same property and say all the damage is from the year that he said there was no damage. And this guy's been in the industry for 20-something years.
I can't stand that. You get this. It just reminds me of an adjuster, and she showed up, and she said, "I have to put a quarter next to every single hail hit, and I can't mark it, but you can." I said, "Okay." She goes, "But I didn't bring any quarters." Okay. So I gave her some quarters. Lucky for her, I had a roll of quarters in the car, which and this was the most awkward, weird thing I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen someone put a quarter on a roof and just watch it fall. I've never seen anyone do anything like this. And it just, that type of adjuster reminded me of that lady. Sorry. It's just like a roll in a circle, man. Let's just go in a circle real quick. These carriers.
They're not trying to make it easy. I mean, everybody thinks the insurance company, they're not a for-profit business. They are a for-profit business.
120%. That's why I think that we forget that that's what it is. It's a multi-billion-dollar business, and we have to take the licks. We have to, learn how to adapt, and it's every year. They change every year. And I know that, that's why I asked that question. It's super important, when dealing with a public adjuster or a law firm, that they're up to date, and that's something that's on the back. That's not only in the back of their head, but the front of their head, because they're looking at the claims and they want to make sure that that claim is done the proper way. Because just like in your case, right, you had to send a whole file to the adjuster. That's why there's public adjusters in this field. You guys go out there and you fight the battle that, say, a contractor can't, and the homeowner definitely can't.
Well, I would add to the fact that, we keep talking about how there are for-profit. There are good adjusters out there, but I think that the problem is all we talk about is the bad adjusters, because it's not like no roof ever gets approved. Roofs get approved all the time.
You're right.
But as a public adjuster, we only see the bad roofs that should have gotten bought that aren't getting bought. And so we have to deal with those bad adjusters. So all we hear about are the bad adjusters. We know there's good ones out there. I still got friends that are adjusters, and I know they buy claims on a regular basis.
Tell me the difference between, and it's a question in the back of my mind. Tell me when a property owner should employ a public adjuster, and what questions should they ask that firm?
I think a big one is, when should they employ a public adjuster? I'm not a fan of them coming and getting a public adjuster on the very front end on roof claims. I think that most roofs can be handled by a property owner and their contractor who's going to go out there and document or whatever what it's going to take to fix the roof and bring it back to before the loss. I'm not recommending that they're negotiating with the insurance company by any means, but they can go out there and say, it wasn't like this before the storm, and this is what it's going to take to put it back to normal, right? But if that roofer or that property owner start getting pushback, they got to make a financial decision. Is it worth it for them to spend another 3 to 6 months fighting with the insurance company on a claim, or should they go out and sell another roof?
That's astute. That's a wise question.
I can tell you the smart ones, they go sell another roof.
Sell another roof. Yeah.
Because the ones that are out of business in 2 years are fighting tooth and nail and getting frustrated and hating life because the adjuster won't call them back, or they're giving them pennies on the dollar. And just, it's that adjuster's MO to ruin their life as much as they can. And those roofers are unhappy because they're fighting over stuff that they don't need to be fighting over if they just sold another roof, because there's plenty of roofs out there that have damage on them. I mean, here we are in 2024, we're still getting claims from a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's not like there's not storm damage out there, especially in North Texas.
I mean, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here. There are plenty of roofs out there. Go out and sell a roof. If you can't get it taken care of, hire a public adjuster or a law firm. Ron, thank you so much for coming on today. It has been an amazing broadcast. We've gotten a lot of good content and got a lot of good quality questions out that, you know, people have been asking for quite some time. And I think we could probably, I got a whole nother page. We could probably sit down and do like 2 or 3 other. You just let me know. I'll be glad to have you on.
Appreciate it.
Man, I appreciate you. We are sponsored by Chad T. Wilson Law Firm, and you can reach me directly at 210-919-8987. I'll get you in contact with Chad T. Wilson Law Firm. We're also sponsored by Roofing Supply Incorporated in the Houston marketplace. You need some shingles, pretty much any material known to man, I got you. As long as I carry it, I could pretty much get it for you.
Don't forget Jamie.
We are also sponsored by West Group Public Adjusters. You're looking for an awesome public adjuster, reach out. Would love to help you out. Telephone number is 210-919-8987. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for another broadcast of Roofing on the Rise. Y'all stay tuned on Saturdays.